Welcome to another episode of The Grass is Greener. I'm your host, Paul Greene, and today's guest is a very extra special cat. His name is Paul Cardall, and you definitely know this guy's music. He is in millions of homes every single day. He's one of those artists that you didn't even know that you knew him. He may not be a household name, but he is in every household. This guy has quite the story. He was born as a blue baby with his heart totally defective, half of a heart, and throughout his life he had many tragedies come upon him, which we'll get into. See how music saved his life, how music gave him a purpose and a passion to move forward, and then how he stumbled into the streaming world and currently has more than 3 billion streams, 30 million monthly listeners, and has 11 number one albums, 22 that were in the top 5, and several of these premiered at number 1 on the Billboard charts. So this guy's amazing. He left the Mormon church, but he holds no disrespect and no grudge against the Mormon church. We get into that quite a bit. Paul was very open, very loving, very generous and vulnerable, and we had a great conversation about a lot of the things that I just love talking about. Getting to the heart of how some people can overcome such great obstacles and why. And so that's what we dig into. I hope you enjoy this. Please stick around to the end. There will be something at the very end as well. And this conversation unfolds in a really powerful way. I really want you to get to know this guy and be inspired by his story, that you may be able to have some perspective on your own struggles and your own challenges and find something out of this that will light you up and help you live a life you love and go after your dreams in the very best way, which is one of the things I'm committed to, is you enjoying your life. That's one of my biggest reasons for doing this. So enjoy my conversation with the one and only Paul Cardall.
I love that it says Freedom Alchemist. That's one of my favorite books.
The Alchemist, yeah. That's a business my wife and I have together. We have a bit of a transformational program and my wife, that's her business, Freedom Alchemist, and I'm going to change it to Paul Greene, even though it doesn't necessarily record, but just in case you forget the name doesn't record, but just in case you forget my name.
I'll remember. It's not Tom. No.
Right. We've been listening, I'll share this in the podcast, but we've been listening to your music in the house through Amazon, like nonstop, and what I want to save this for when we start talking, but just let me change the name. One thing amazed us is we knew a lot of the songs from with either film or something, but yeah, I'm going to save that because I want to share that. But just so you know, I do have questions, but what happens in these conversations is I rarely get to them because what you're sharing usually has me ask a question about it, and there's a few things like I really want to share about your book and your album and that. You know, obviously because they're new but your story to me is, there's a heart to your story that you chose to not be a victim and you chose to create. I'm sure there was times in your life where it wasn't that easy, or sounds from what I can tell, your life was a lot more challenging than a lot of lives that people I know, yet you managed to create. And so many people shut down and go into victim. And that's one really powerful thing I want to find in this time we spent together is, how are you able to do what you've done with what would have taken so many people out? And that's because, I feel like I'm on a mission to like inspire individuals to live a life that they love and not just be victims of their past. And that's one of the things that really drew me to your story, is mining your how and your why out of this, so that some people might be able to look at their lives and go, well, my life's not that bad, and he was able to create, and your life's
it's all relative, man. It's all right. Is that what you and your wife are doing? Is helping do transformation of helping people recognize their value?
That's a big part of it. That's for sure a big part of it. We do a body, a mind, and connection. So I do the body stuff, and she does mind, and then we do a relationship kind of piece. And she's a trained strategic intervention coach through Tony Robbins, so she does NLP, and she kind of does it all. Yeah, and then I share every fitness hack I've ever had because I used to do Men's Health fitness covers, and my dad died of ALS. So, but let's just start, because I'm sure we'll get into all this stuff.
Yeah. My wife, because my wife knows you because of your health side, because she's a fitness competitor. She's been in the health industry a long time. She helped Rick Warren at Saddleback Church create the Daniel Plan. There's like all these, but she said, "Oh yeah, you'll listen to that guy. You'll get in better shape."
Well, I'm so happy to have you on. Before I share this, I'm going to share some of your big successes, and just when Aaron, your publicist, shared with me that you had 3 billion streams and 3 billion, and then monthly, it's like 30 million monthly streams, and 11 number 1 albums, or 22 on the charts, and several of them premiered at number 1. And I mean, I'm so glad she reached out to me, because I didn't know that I didn't know you. Meaning, like, when I heard your music, I'm like, I know this guy's music. Like, I've heard it.
Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating. We've had it on in our house now, like almost 10 days, where I'm cooking, I'll tell Alexa, play Paul Cardall. And your name's pronounced Cardall, right? Not Cardall?
Yeah, Cardall.
And my son, he's 17, and he likes the music, and I'm blown away, especially in your music, of the authenticity that I feel. Like, I feel there's this soul in you, Paul, that comes out through your music, and it's not pretentious, it's not manipulative. And I'm a musician too, so you can hear when someone's trying to get a result, and it's just your heart comes through, and you have such a incredible story about your heart, which is like just wild. And I really want to get into that, but where I'd like to start is at the very beginning. If you can just share a little bit about, because some of the fans and the listeners that listen to this podcast, and also that follow me in some way, had heard about you, and several of them read your book, and they're like curled up with your book and your music. And when I share I'm going to interview someone, they like really dig in, and they want to get to know you. So your cool. Yeah, it is cool. So your story, tell us just a little bit, like where you're from and that beginning. Yeah. I love the story about how you were born, and your surgery 22 days later. So if you can just start there, I think that would be amazing, Paul.
Yeah, man. So it was 1973, the year of the ox. I plowed my way through my mother, and sadly, they had to take me from her immediately because I was termed a blue baby, which was a term for kids with congenital heart disease, which today is the number 1 birth defect and leading cause of infant-related deaths. And immediately they just said, look, there's a surgeon in California. We can fly out here to operate on your child, but he's not going to survive. My mother's younger sister died when she was born of a heart defect, so she was devastated, as you know. Fortunately, the surgeon had learned about a technique to help preserve infants, and he'd never really done the procedure. But he comes to Salt Lake City, where I was born, and started the operation at 22 hours. So I wasn't even a day old when I had taken from my mother and tortured. They cut into me. They miraculously rerouted some of the blood flow. But they found, this is what's crazy, they found I only had a single ventricle. I did not have a tricuspid valve. I did not have a tricuspid. I did not have the ventricle right there. And my aorta was so messed up. And my arteries were transposed. So the heart was like in backwards, but it was like only half there. So he alleviated the pressure by creating this little like route to sustain me temporarily until they figured something else out. That's what's crazy. And
that was at 20. That was at 22 hours, not 22 days. Like that was just right
22 hours. Oh, okay. Yeah, and I was in surgery for a while, and they gave me to my mom, and there's no Google, there's no internet to kind of figure out what's going on with statistics. And she just thought it was an act of God. It was absolutely miraculous. And her and my father, I had 3 older sisters. And so they took me home. And in those days, you put the kid in the crib. You don't put him in the bedroom. You put him in the crib, and she's, but I defied the odds. I kept living, and I was raised with that whole mentality. You probably aren't going to be around very long.
Wait, when was the first maybe year that you remembered, or the first time you remembered that feeling of like, oh, like who told you that? And that's what I'm so excited to get into, is because you've been given death sentences, and you decided somewhere inside of you that there's a bigger purpose for you. And so when was the first time someone dropped that bomb on you?
Well, obviously the first time you take your shirt off and you know that you're scarred up at the pool and kids are looking at you. Or on the playground, kids are playing basketball and you get picked last because you're a little slower than everybody else. So I was always trying to keep up, and I substituted it with cynicism, jokes, humor. I was not very good at it, which I think is why music came into my life later. But it was just survive and adapt. And the other thing is scouting was big in our family. My grandfather was some president of the Jamboree or something like that. And so we had to do scouting. I had to get an eagle. But I have a, half heart. It's me and the fat diabetic kid on the hikes in the very back with the scoutmaster trying to make our way up the hill. And it was stuff I was really frustrated about emotionally. But at the same time, I kept living. And every year on my birthday, my dad would just reiterate to everybody, this is a miracle. You were made for a purpose. We don't know what it is. We'll find out, but keep going. So they instilled in me, and which is ironic because my dad was a broadcast journalist, a pessimist, trying to find no fluff stories. He was trying to find the really effective truth. And so he asked tons of questions, but his spirit of this is something else. You can do this. And my mother just, oh yeah, you'll live forever. But every time you go to the doctor, it's like you can hear him talking outside the hall, going, "He's not doing too good."
Wow. And do you remember like how old you were when you first like heard them talking outside in the hallway, and like right there in that moment, like what do you do? How do you pull yourself up and then go after it? Like, oh.
Well, I think it was the environment I grew up in. I grew up in Salt Lake City, a lot of faith in mysticism and miracles, and a lot of Christianity miracles. So it was something that was kind of common. You expect that to kind of happen, that good things can happen. And so I just was like, I'll just prove to you guys that God is still doing miracles. I'll show you.
Yeah.
That was just me reflecting back what they're teaching and going, you guys seem to doubt what you're teaching. I'll show you. And it was cocky. It was but you survive and you adapt and you thrive because you don't have any other alternative.
Right. Right. You don't have a choice to just be like, you're right. And so you said something really interesting. You said mystical. When I think of Utah, and I don't have a lot of I know very little about the Mormon church, but I know in Christianity there's more fundamental and there's mystical sides to Christianity. And in Mormonism, is there also, say, more fundamental Mormons and more mystical Mormons that believe in miracles, or is it pretty much one?
Well, Mormonism, and there's hundreds of different kinds, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that I was raised in, I'm a Christian today, but I was raised in that entire environment. I loved it. There's a lot of laying on of hands and blessings patterned after the way Jesus would go around and heal people. So that's happening. but it's not this go on TV and, I'll give you $20 and you fall over and I'll heal you. These people are extremely sincere. And I fully believed, and I power of intention, God, whatever it is, the secret. It was working for me.
Sure.
It worked really well for me, and it gave me clarity and purpose. But, when the neighbor I think I was 8 years old when a young man in my neighborhood had cancer, and his parents would push him around in a stroller covered in blankets, and I was playing football with the kids on the front lawn and seeing this kid go by, and they're like, yeah, he's sick. I'm like, well, I'm sick, but I'm running around and he's dying. Like, why am I still here? And I'm thinking that at 8 years old. You're not supposed to think about that until you're retired. Right. And then this kid, I hear that he passed away in the night on the couch. And I recall sobbing that night at the bottom of the stairs, because we weren't allowed to go upstairs after we were sent down after the fall guy was over or whatever. So we had to stay downstairs.
Did you say the fall guy?
Yeah, you got your Friday night lineup, man. That's CBS.
I love the fall guy. I loved it. We're born a year apart, you and I, Paul.
There we go. That was my Heather Locklear. It's just, I know my sexuality. Okay.
Yes, she helped with mine too, for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Daisy Dukes, and then anyways. Catherine. So it was just a sad night. I was sobbing, and my dad comes down and goes, "What's the matter?" I'm like, I don't get it. Why am I still alive if I only have half a heart and he has a perfect heart? What is cancer? And all my dad could do and think for my dad, he held me. I had that kind of father. He held me. He says, things happen for a reason, but we're just grateful you're here. And that was, he didn't say anything else, really. And I went back to bed.
Wow. But he held you and he shared that. Those are some big things to have to deal with at 8 years old. And was it right around that time when someone tried to get you into piano for the first time?
Well, the purpose of taking piano lessons was because after we got picked up before school was over and taken to my great aunt who taught piano lessons, which meant going to grandma's after for ice cream. So I was all in, but like this lady, my aunt, she finally told my mother after about 3 or 4 months that I was wasting her money and I was wasting her time. And it's probably better because she took me into this like old dark, what we call food storage units in the basements of Utah. And there's bottled peaches and cobwebs. And then she pulls out this what do you call those things? Those filing cabinets? But the younger audience don't know what those are, but you pulled out a metal filing cabinet, all the sheet music I'm supposed to learn from when she was a teenager, which is like Joplin. Wow. So I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. 6 months, did one recital. It was the theme for the commercial Coke Is It. I learned that song like, Coke is it, the greatest taste you've ever found. Coke is, and that was it. And then I was done. It was over.
That was it. That was your, and at that time you were really into Wham, Rush, and one other band, Duran.
Yeah, Arena, Wild Boys. I think I saw the Wild Boys video. I'm like, I'm hooked. I'm in. No, I just loved music. I mean, it was, and there's nobody in my family that was really musical. But we would be awoken by music. I mean, my parents had 8 kids, so they would wake us up with the Hallelujah chorus. My dad would blast, like, the Tabernacle Choir Hallelujah chorus, or it was blasting, oh, how lovely is, no, what is it? Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful, from Oklahoma. And so that was the only thing I knew. Tabernacle Choir, Oklahoma, and a John Denver cassette that we would listen to on road trips for 6 hours and driving.
So how did Wham and how did those influences come in? Because were you not necessarily allowed to listen? So, well, John Denver, I guess he's pretty wholesome, but was your family one that you weren't allowed to listen to secular music in the sense I wasn't?
Really?
Yeah.
You were not allowed?
No, the only album I snuck in was Joshua Tree by U2 because I showed my mom on the back it said In God's Country and Streets with No Name. I'm like,
Mom was a Christian. He's a Christian, yeah.
And really, he is. Those guys in the
Yeah.
80s, one of my friends, Michael Guido, who you may end up meeting in Nashville at some point. I'd love you guys to meet. He's a road minister that tours like Michael W. Smith, and back in the day, and he met those guys back then, but he's a road chaplain like Bon Jovi, and he sort of tours, and his ministry is wild, and he's really connected in Nashville with Smitty. Michael W. Smith is his best friend. And I could see him being...
Yeah, I may know. I think I've heard of him through Jim Daneker, who is Michael's musical director and produced one of my last records. Yeah,
he would have said the word Guido, and Guido. I love that. I've been supporting their ministry for 25 years, probably, when I met them.
I love that.
Yeah. Just a portion of my tithe goes to, because I know he supports artists, but back to you two, and so were you allowed to listen to other stuff?
Oh yeah, well, my problem is that my room was right below my parents, and I invented the first Dolby stereo by placing the radio, the pillow over the radio, so I could play it and still get kind of a boom. Anyways, it would go all the way up through my parents' floor. So my dad would come down and say, I don't know who this Neil Peart guy is, but, he's banging way too loud and we can hear it. And I wanted to say, I can hear you guys, but
why didn't you?
Eight kids. I mean, come on now. So, no, I just was, I think it was the playground. It was the playground where kids would talk about music. And I saw an album cover, Rush. It was Hold Your Fire. And I thought it was the coolest looking thing. And so I was over at my friend's house, 9 years old or something, and he played the record for me. And I was hooked. I found all my dad's old records. Kingston Trio, Dean Martin. So I discovered that my dad had all this great music, but because he was a journalist, he'd go on the road and report back some concerts. And so he was backstage and would watch behavior. And so he just never talked about musicians, I think wisely so that we wouldn't want to become musicians because of the immorality associated with being a musician.
Right. Right.
But
so your dad was like
buying cassettes, he didn't care.
He didn't care. So your dad was backstage like that movie, Almost Famous, where the kid that was reporting for the Rolling Stone, and that's Kate Hudson movie. Your dad was like reporting rock shows. Is that what he was doing?
Well, he would get these assignments that he was actually the religion specialist for KSL, which was the NBC affiliate, and so he was assigned religion in Utah, which is like sports. So then. But then he would do these side reportings and documentaries for a show that he created called Dimension 5, which was, which was patterned after 60 Minutes for a local audience. And he was very serious. So he was on the road with Beach Boys because there was a connection to Utah. Kingston Trio, there was a connection to Utah. All these bands, and so... but then again, it was cool because later on in my life, when he had a show, he had these pianists, these famous people come through like Yanni. So I got to go down to the record. Yeah. I got to go down and meet Yanni, and I thought maybe give me some tips, give me some lady tips. So I meet Yanni, flip the hair back.
Wait a minute. You're getting lady tips from Yanni? That is great.
I just thought I could.
Yeah. And wait, but hearing Yanni play at that level, did that begin to light some fire in like what's possible with, because he does a pan flute, but he's also an amazing pianist, isn't he?
Yeah, well, if you go back into the 80s, this is when New Age music became very popular. Today, you think New Age, you think the New Age religion, but that was the name for classical crossover music at the time. Lifestyle, people that were starting to do yoga. It evolved out of Will Ackerman, the guitar player, and George Winston coming together and creating Windham Hill, and then Yanni came out of Greece, and Yanni got famous because he was playing at Hollywood stuff, and Linda Evans, he started dating Linda Evans from Dynasty, and she took him on Oprah. So that's why I was going, he knows how to get the really beautiful ones.
Wow, that was something I did not know about Yanni. I remember seeing him play at the Taj Mahal on a video, and I kind of, in my head, I made fun of him. I'm like, oh, Yanni, but then I saw this concert at the Taj Mahal, and I was like, holy, like this is such a legit artist. But like, so you grew up, it sounds like you were exposed to a bunch of massive variety, and your family sounds amazing. Like your dad, eight siblings, you're one of 8.
Yeah.
And your mom and dad seemed like they loved each other growing up.
They're still married, 53 years.
Oh, dude.
It's so awesome. Unusual and so amazing.
So amazing.
It's incredible.
So amazing. And now you mentioned something really, and I know I want to get into this with you later. I know that the Mormon faith does fall inside of the Christian umbrella, but you made a distinction that said you're a Christian now. So there's a distinction for you. What is that distinction for you? Just briefly, and we can get into that a little bit more later if you want to.
I don't. My entire heritage is Mormon. I'm alive because of Mormon tradition, which required polygamy early on. And so all of my ancestors, most of them were polygamist early on. That was discontinued as Utah was trying to get statehood because it was illegal. And so it's very family oriented. The community is very strong. Everyone is very friendly on the surface and tries to do the best they can to help their neighbors up until the neighbors are like, yeah, we're not joining. And you continue. Right. There are those that continue. Right. It's all Christ-centered. The fruits of Christianity are there in the sense of service and healing and a lot of the gifts that are recognizable in the Bible. But you have the Book of Mormon, which is supposed to be the history of the tribe of Ephraim, and then it's a combination of the Mosaic and Christian law together in a way, because there's still a prophet. And this is a very personal decision. I don't recommend Mormons leave the church unless they feel that God is leading them. Right. I believe it's better to be led than to be driven in life. Pay attention. And I've fought to live my entire life by that because I've relied on him intensely for survival. So it led me to a point where I was seeking healing from past trauma, from all the deaths and, everything we're going to talk about. I was seeking Christ, and a lot of things led up to it. It was probably a 17-year process. But what it was the book of Galatians and a real close study of some of the Gospels that made me question why we have middlemen facilitating our salvation. And the church now is the LDS Church, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're moving away from the narrative that exists because it simply is not accurate, and they're shifting to a more Christ-centered. And I think it's amazing.
Wow.
And for some Christians, they feel it's God really coming into that church and beginning to really lead it and heal it in the same way he leads other plants in the garden, you know?
Right, right.
So I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't recommend anyone getting out unless you are led.
Right. That's really responsible. And it sounds like the way you were touched by God was very personal to you, and you're not projecting that everybody has to have that experience. Like that's how God personally interacted with you, and this is what's working for you. And I love hearing that what you shared, that's a movement within to be more Christ-centered, because that's always confused me about, say, Catholicism or any religion really, where you have to go through someone to get to God. I never understood why. Because I grew up with a very personal kind of relationship, and it was a bit, I grew up Pentecostal, so there was, miracles and healing and tongues and good music. I was a drummer in our church band, which has sort of got me into music a little bit.
I love that.
See
that music was a big influence in shaping my thinking too, though.
In what way?
Because I grew up with the Tabernacle Choir singing all the traditional hymns, but then I would hear, Michael W. Smith, and I would hear Tomlin and other Christian songs, and there was an emotion there. Like you say, there's an emotion there that just takes hold of you and enlightens you in a profound way that's deeply personal. It's like God speaking through the music to you, because music is the universal code of knowing that there's a God.
Now, I've never heard anybody say it like that before. Where did you come up with that, and why can you say it like that?
Well, Harvard Health has done studies. My website, I list these studies under music therapy, because everything I do is clinically proven. It says that listening to certain types of music helps reduce anxiety, depression. It helps with stress and anxiety. They say it releases the cortisone levels and all those things, but these are the same things that people of faith go, well, that's God's spirit. Scientists go, no, that's dopamine. It don't matter. I don't care if it's science or whatever. It's happening, right? It's happening. So I like to give credit to whoever existed prior to the science.
Sure.
So for me, watch the Coldplay concert in Brazil. People don't recognize, but it's a cross. The stage is a cross. And yet they got the rainbow thing going so that everybody feels welcome to the table, because that's the way God intends. And I don't know if they strategically do that or think like that, but me, I see the world this way. Yeah. I go, this is a cross, and Coldplay, without even maybe knowing it, or maybe they do, is uniting people the way Jesus
for sure
did.
I mean, Chris Martin's a deeply spiritual guy, and really, like, I'm not sure of his individual faith, but I know he's a connected human. I know he's a connected guy, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's this. Go to a concert. Look at everybody, how diverse they are. Everyone's jumping up and down, having a good time.
Yeah, right. So there's the code. The code is like bringing everybody together. Like music is the code. What did you say? Music is the code of what?
Music is the code language of God. Because everybody can feel it. Everybody can recognize it. It unites people, because everything in this world wants to divide us. But God wants us to love one another and bring each other together.
Right. And I feel like that's what your music does too. When you put it on, it doesn't matter what song comes on, there is a calming effect, to get a relaxing effect. And we're in such a divisive climate on our planet right now where, the news, you turn on the news, depends which news you turn on, the other side is like the devil. And I think there's never been a more important time for music like yours that can make a difference and help things to actually come together a little bit. And the language of God I love that. And that should be one of your shirts. Like you should have for your merchandise, like music is the code, the language of God.
This is like, I sat watching some artists and I was like, they're always like promoting a brand. I'm like, I want to promote something that promotes, the value of what we're doing rather than golf or something.
Sure,
I don't know.
Sure.
But no, I appreciate that. I think, music is just, I don't know anybody that doesn't like music. I know people that don't like chocolate, but I don't know people that don't like music.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I've never met anyone that's like, nope, I don't like music at all, just silence, So let me ask you, at 13, something really big happened to you, right? Like you got you've had several heart surgeries, but at 13 was there a transplant or no, just a really big operation at 13, 14?
That was when reality really happened, because at age 13, I got endocarditis on the section of my heart that, and endocarditis it's like a strep infection. If it gets into your bloodstream, it will kill you, and you use antibiotics to try to kill it, but the antibiotics was not killing this infection. There was a new special x-ray that had been invented, and 6 months earlier had been put in a trailer parked outside LDS Hospital in Utah called an MRI. They took me there and they discovered I had a big walnut blister on my damaged heart full of that infection, and so they needed to operate on me, but they thought if that pops or anything, I'm gone. So it was a stressful time. It was the first time I recognized and was really in the hospital, and my parents, my whole family, I was there for a couple months. Everybody came up to say, goodbye. And then I was wheeled off to surgery. And, my heart keeps playing Cry Wolf since I've been born. And I went into surgery, and really that was the first time where I really had clarity of how fragile life is. I'd lost my buddy, but the friend and the neighborhood kid, but not where I was actually in the situation where I'm going to be gone tomorrow. You don't remember as an infant, but as a teenager. It's cool, though, because 2 weeks before I got sick, I got my Eagle Scout. So I had completed all that, which was a requirement in our family.
Wait, just real quick, because I think I understand what Eagle Scouts is, but you said you had to have your own eagle. Can you just give me the 1 minute lowdown on what Eagle Scouts is? Because we have some European people watching. Oh, okay. And in America, it's a pretty American thing. In Canada, we had like Boy Scouts, but what is Eagle Scouts?
Yeah. So it's Boy Scouts of America. It's a scouting program. It's like a pre-military without any guns or fighting. It's survival skills. Survival. Right. It's loyalty to country. It's citizenship. It's how to budget your money for 3 months. And you have endless merit badges. And by the time you get a certain amount of merit badges, and most kids don't get them till they're like 17, 18 years old, you qualify to get the Eagle, which is the most prestigious. And it was cool because my Eagle, when I got it, back in those days, the President of the United States would sign the card. So I had Ronald Reagan sign a congratulation card for getting an Eagle. Wow. Nowadays, I think President Obama stopped doing it, and then, I don't know, and then the program is just, I don't know where the program is now, but back then it was a big part. It was the church program.
Got it.
For the youth, for the men, for the boys.
Okay, got it. So it's a part of the LDS church? Because it's also everywhere else.
It's everywhere else, but the LDS church was the largest funder. because it was the program to help young men help boys become young men. Because it starts at age 10 up until 18 years old.
Which is so missing from our culture. There's no rite of passage. You know, I love Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. And are you familiar with Joseph Campbell?
I've heard it. Yeah, no, I'm not. But I know the title of what you're saying. I don't know the name of the author.
He's the reason we have Star Wars. And he's George Lucas's friend. And The Hero's Journey, any sort of adventure, whether it's Harry Potter or the Hunger Games, they all follow the journey. It is, and your music, probably whether you know it or not, the reason it connects so well to people in their hearts is our ancestors for hundreds or thousands of years would tell these stories. And there's a very strategic sort of hero's journey in the story. And a big part of it is slaying a dragon. And there's these rite of passages that teenagers, 13, 14, it's, in the Jewish tradition, they have it with bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, but in majority of secular kids, or even in Christianity, there's no earning your young manhood. There's just, and nowadays everyone's so checked out with social media or video games that there's nothing. So I love that tradition, and you have to go survive and come. And back in the day, they'd have to go kill a bear, or an animal to bring back to the village to get their eagle, right, or to prove that they are now no longer to be seen as a boy, but now they are to be seen as a man. And it's so missing in our culture.
I think it's missing primarily because we're too busy. But it exists, and that's one of the things I loved and admire about the LDS Church is they do have all those programs. When you turn 10, you have achievement days. When you turn 12, you can start doing communion. When you turn 14, you can prepare communion and visit people with pastors. 16, it goes all the way up. You're always involved. There's always a program. I was the young men's leader, a volunteer, asked by the bishop who has a day job. No one's paid. So I was asked to be in charge of all these young men, plan all the scouting camps, plan all the events, while I'm trying to do my career, raise a daughter, and, stay happily married. So these are all the challenges. But those programs instilled such, a lot of people hire LDS return missionaries because of their character and hard work. Yeah. And so there are programs. That's one thing I feel is missing from a lot of Christian plants that have great opportunities to really teach young men to be men and treat women with respect. But we're at a difficult time because of gender. We're trying to help everybody feel welcomed, and everybody's grabbing at, it's our turn. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just want people to get along,
I get that about you. You're a positive guy. So you got your ego badge right as before you went into your surgery, and this surgery, you're like your family, everyone's saying goodbye. And now how many surgeries had you had on your heart up to that time? Is this just your second one after the 22nd?
So I just had one.
Yeah.
I just had one major surgery, but I was in the hospital every year for catheters. And
fun. That sounds like fun.
Well, especially because they didn't have back then. They didn't put the kids under.
Oh my!
They would just shoot. They would just shoot your femoral artery full of lidocaine, and then you could feel the wire, the little thin wire camera, come up through the groin all the way up into the. But because I didn't have a aortic valve, they had to go an alternative route. And I remember having several of those and feeling tortured.
Yeah, I can't imagine. No anesthetic at all, or some local, or not much?
There's a little bit. There was a little bit. They give you some of the gas, so it's like, the chocolate or vanilla. but you're awake. Versed came later, which helps you forget what happened. They give that to soldiers who come back from a battle, intense battle.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're going into the surgery. You survived that surgery, and what was the surgery?
It was just to take that POTS shunt that was damaged with the infection, get rid of the infection, kill it all. And then I was patched up, sternum closed, come back in a year, and we're going to do reconstructive surgery because there's a lot of scar tissue. So go to school, come back, we'll fix you up again. It's like, you got to take your car to the DMV. And so I had to go back to the Children's Hospital for another big...
And so a year later, you had another big reconstructive surgery.
Yeah, and I almost died there again. The cardiothoracic surgeon cut a little too far, and so I ended up needing a pacemaker. The pacemaker failed because they were out of pacemakers in stock. I learned this later. So they had to order one in. And then he went on vacation and gave me another surgeon. And my mother was concerned because he wasn't Mormon, he was Catholic. And I was like, it's gonna be okay. So it's gonna be okay. So, and I used to comfort my mother, and my mother would comfort me by taking me to the hostess store. And so yeah, it was major reconstructive again. And then they had to open me up 3 more times. I finally said to my dad going into the 3rd one, I'm like, I'm done. Just lay your hands on me and send me to heaven. Right. He's like, oh no, you go in there and you have that surgery and you come out and live. And so I did. Like, he was disciplining me as I was dying. And yeah. And then they put the pacemaker in me. So I was like, great. My friends were like, my grandpa has one of those.
Right.
So I said, well, your grandpa's rich. So
yeah.
Anyways.
And then at 16, you had a pretty significant blow, right? Like your best friend was killed in a car, and he's your best friend. He was really into music. Can you just share a little bit about that time and that moment for you?
Yeah, when you go over to somebody's house and there's a party and someone sits down at the piano and they start playing everything and everybody gathers and it's like, holy cow, how do you pull that off? And like, the ugliest guy can get the best looking girl, and like, I'm watching this and I'm going, I want to do that. How do you do that? He'd play heart and soul. He was so talented and so gifted but there was an accident and he got in an auto pedestrian accident and died. And I was, again, the neighbor kid was one thing, but this really hit home because I knew him so well. And I was just with him. And so I had a lot of questions. Why am I still here? What's the purpose? Why is he gone? And that's when I went to my parents' living room on the old upright piano that I had not played for a long time. I took piano lessons on it, and I sat down and I hit 3 notes. And just some backstory on that. When you're in hospitals your entire life, you're hearing ding, 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 ding. You're hearing tritones. The tritones that are used to make Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield. The scary movies, the horror movies. That's the sounds we have in hospitals today. Ding, ding, ding. So I hit these 3 notes, and it was so beautiful. I'm like, where'd that come from? And I had this overwhelming warm feeling. And I thought I heard a voice, but it was just kind of like, everything's okay. He's with me. And it was a really beautiful experience. And that evolved into a song. But what was interesting was I started playing that song and somebody else said, hey, play that again. Play it again. And I got the courage to go play it for his mom and dad. And they invited the neighbors over. And then they invited neighbors over. song is called Dave's Farewell. It's on my first album, Sign of Affection. And that was the beginning of kind of a theme that flows throughout the entire soundtrack of life of my albums, up until even this last record. And at that time, MTV was massive, and they showed the music video for Amadeus.
Right,
they made Mozart cool, right? Remember?
I remember.
They had Symphony 25. Mozart's running down the hall, and that was the best thing MTV ever did, was take classical music, make it a music video. Right. It was so popular. You had that one guy write that song, Rock Me Amadeus. Amadeus. Rock Me Amadeus.
I remember.
So, yeah.
And
you got to teach me some lighting skills, man. You are...
No, I'm actually struggling. I'm struggling with my light because I have a real daylight here, and it keeps shifting with the clouds, and then it blasts out, and then I'm trying to tone it down.
It's like a cover of Men's Health right there, man. It's good.
Your light looks nice and even and stable. Mine goes like beet red, and then I got to go adjust it, and then I just say forget it, and then I look, and it's got this bright spot. So it's just for later for YouTube. I like putting these on YouTube. So people can see your face and connect with us in this way. And so that's at 16, and just take me from 16 then to did you go and do the missionary? You would have, right? You would have done the Mormon.
I did. I didn't know that. I didn't know if they would let me go on an LDS mission because of my heart problem.
Oh.
But fortunately, they sent me to California by Loma Linda.
Okay.
So I served 2 years. I knocked on doors, gave away a lot of Book of Mormons, but my favorite part was going to the elementary schools, teaching kids, inner city kids, to read, going to rest homes, convalescent centers, and taking ice cream. And that's what these guys are doing now. These women or girls are doing as well, serving. And it's an opportunity to really learn about yourself instead of hanging out the fraternity.
Right. And so you're, I just want to, how did you, so you wrote your first concerto at 18, how does it go from not playing piano or anything much, sitting there being moved by, let's call it the spirit, the code, you're sitting there, you write this song for David, right? His name is David.
Yeah.
And then how do you become this prolific of a composer? Like, how did those lessons at 8 years old must have been pretty good? Or did you just have it, or did you have to really work to get the proficient on the piano like that?
I think it was there. It didn't come until after I'd had countless heart surgeries. My brain was substituting for the fact that I didn't receive full oxygen, full blood flow. The science of it is that my brain became creative, and the creative part just exploded as it's trying to supplement everything else. I feel that it's a gift from God, that purpose that my parents were saying, you're here for a reason, that came at the right time in my life as a means to help people all over the world have their hearts healed. And so God put people in my life who were prolific musicians, not trained, but could play by ear. My first wife, and when you're, a former Mormon, that sounds really bad, your first wife and then your second. But my ex-wife, an amazing, one of my good friends, just an amazing person. Her brother in the neighborhood had created a concerto his senior year of high school, and we became friends. I heard him playing the piano. He could play anything from Yanni or George Winston or all those new age guys that were really popular at the time, but he could play Metallica. He could play, Master Puppet on the piano. And he wasn't interested like Dave was in the atmosphere. He was just into the music. So I would sit with him and watch him. He would teach me arpeggio flow. And that's when I said, do you think I could do a concerto like you? Sure. So I went and asked the orchestra or the conductor at the high school, who'd never seen me in any class, he's like, who are you? Where do you go to school? I go to school here. Can I do concerto night? Well, what are you going to play? Puccini? Chopin? I said, I'm going to play Cardall. Never heard of him. So it was, but I mean, Paul, it was horrible. I created this like Russian polka that sounded more like Mario finding the princess. And I tried out, and the conductor's like, you want to do this? I said, yeah, give me a shot. He's like, okay, we'll put it near the end. People will need a good laugh. But I took it very serious. So I got with Ryan. We stayed up all night over a weekend, created the orchestration. He wrote a lot of that stuff. I told him what I wanted. He wrote it all. And then we went and we tried it again with the school orchestra. And he said, great, let's do it. We did it. But we did because the school conductor, the teacher, was in the Utah Symphony, very prestigious violinist, and he knew Russian. So at the end of the score on the last page, right before we handed it to him, before I went on stage, in Russian it says, thank God there's no more.
Oh, that's hilarious. And did it go well?
It was fun. It was exhilarating. My aunt, who taught me piano, was there. My parents were just shocked.
Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the program was pretty cool because it was like Mozart, Beethoven, Cardall. I did not belong on that program. But people always said to me, you're going to die, or you can't move a mountain. I said, you can move a mountain. Just give me enough money to hire a construction company to go over there and start digging and moving it. Yeah. It's perspective. Yeah. Sure. So let me have a shot. Let me try. And fortunately, God put people in my life that were willing to say, yeah, I'll give you a shot.
Right. So and let you take that shot. And was this right around the time your brother passed away? Was like that was years later. I was I ended up getting married and was playing restaurants, and it evolved with the internet in creating a mailing list that would self-sustain my releasing of albums, signed with Virgin Records, and then at age 32 I began to go into heart failure. We knew at some point I would need a heart transplant, but that was so strange, the thought of getting a heart, because that meant it comes from somebody who had died. And in Christianity, that kind of helps, because my brother had said, look, because of an organ donor, you're going to be able to live a little longer. But because of Jesus, who laid down his life, the greatest organ donor of all of us can rise and rise forever. So that was so eye-opening to me and so liberating, that made me feel like, okay, maybe I can do this. But I had been waiting in the children's hospital, just really sick. And the reason I was in the children's hospital, Paul, is because not very many people my age had survived. And all the experts were congenital, because it was a congenital defect. So I was living in the children's hospital with other kids getting heart surgeries. And it was a powerful experience, a sobering experience. I didn't really have time to worry about myself. And I was sent home because I was doing a little bit better. And my brother was up in Utah for a wedding with his wife, who was pregnant, and
2-year-old daughter. And my illness, you can see on an x-ray. He was working on his PhD, but he has manic episodes and had been diagnosed as bipolar.
This is your
but
brother?
Only,
this
yeah, but brother. He would only, yeah, my brother Brian, my younger brother, the only other musician, played guitar, wrote songs, traveled all over Europe, a brilliant mind. You wouldn't think he had any problem. It was when he had his bachelor's or master's or working on a PhD when he would have an episode of hallucination and depression and sadness. And but yeah, it ended up he was going back, and he had not taken the medication they had just recently prescribed him. And his wife pulled over the side of the road, and he got outside and started running around because he was really hot, hallucinating. She called 911 for help, and he ended up, instead of them helping, pulled out tasers. And these guys had not been trained on how to work with the mental illness, people with mental illness, which is the majority of everybody in prison, and how to deal with and get trained on new weapons. The taser being a weapon, because it was the second taser after 42 seconds that really that killed my brother. The first one took him down. The second one stopped his heart. And ironically, I had been cardioverted, so I know what it feels like to be shocked at 55,000 units. And my brother, had he got a third shot, it would have started his heart back up. But they hadn't been trained. So he died while everybody thought I was about to die any day because of my heart problem. And because my dad's on the news, it came across the wire, son of Paul Cardall has died. So the answering machine in my house, my wife was at work. And I don't get up because I'm wearing oxygen watching, Little House on the Prairie or something happy. And the machine starts going off. Hey, we're so sorry to hear about your husband. We're so sorry. What can we do? What can we do? And we quickly, said, it's not me. But that day I wished it was. Because my brother was an incredible human being, and he has done so much for the Forest Service and for restoring the Virgin River and so many things to give people, a better chance at life. It's devastating.
And so what age was this that you were at when this happened?
I was 36. He was 32.
And yeah. This is before or after your transplant of your heart?
So this is leading up. I'd been waiting
okay.
9 months when he died. Yeah, and he wasn't able to be an organ donor because he had died. I ended up getting the heart. Well, I made a promise. I kneel in prayer a lot, and I said, listen, please. My mom cannot lose two. And I made a mental manifestation that day. I'm going to live. I'm going to get a heart. And to celebrate the memory of my brother, I'm going to climb this mountain he loved to climb. 6 months after the trip. 1 year from the day he died. So it was June 9th, 2009. When he died, June 10th, I made the promise, 1 year from now, I will hike this mountain that I've never been able to hike. It's too strenuous, it's too impossible, and everyone's going to come with me, and we're going to do this mountain. And 90 days later, a young man took his life, and within an hour and a half, his heart was beating in my chest. And so I'm alive because one young man chose to end his life. Mm-hmm. But first he signed up to be an organ donor. And 6 months later, June 9th, 2010, with all the family, we climbed that mountain. Wow. And you know what's crazy is I got to the top of the mountain. There was this old mailbox And when you open the mailbox, right on tape, it says the name Paul. And people write inside that mailbox on top of this mountain, wishes to people that have passed away.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow. And now there's some depression that came in after losing your friend earlier at 16, and then the music pulled you out of that depression. Has music been something like, has music helped you sort of process these things? Like you've had so much loss and so much bad news from the doctors in this. So has music been something that you've really leaned on for a way to survive through that much loss, and also that?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, depression never goes away. Depression's like alcoholism. Depression is like brushing your teeth. There's just something that's there. It's about managing depression, because you have to recognize that trauma, whatever you've had in your life that's triggering all that sadness and grief, for me, it's one of my parts. It's one of the parts that shows up. And I have to talk to that part.
Right.
Like, what are you doing, man? Leave me alone. And I try to get another part, a memory of something that's really beautiful, to tell this part that everything's going to work out. I'm here. I'm safe, and then he slowly goes away. And then anxiety part comes in. So, I mean, it's all because you're a musician. I mean, you can't get away from depression and anxiety. I didn't need a heart transplant. I just needed to be a musician to get all the bonuses that we have. But the challenge is, life does not get easier. It gets manageable with the right resources. And for me, music is the most powerful resource to feel enlightened, renewed, and refreshed.
Yeah.
And happy,
Right. And then you create that for others too. It's like you're also being of service, and your music and your life, your story, which is such a big part of the Broken Miracle, and like the book, and also your album, which is the one, your latest release. But your story, even though your identity is so much in that story, how in the world did this not take you out? Because so many people are having a lot of loss, and I'm sure there's a lot of losses that I'm not aware of, and a lot of pain, and a lot of things you had to overcome. So in some people, it takes them out completely, and they're either live their life as a victim forever, or they kill themselves, or they decide that life's not fair, God's not fair. But what is that muscle? Like, what is that switch or that tool? Like, how the nickel do you do that with your life, instead of having your life just be a statistic of, oh yeah, that makes sense, that guy's life was hard, no wonder he acts, into, oh my goodness, this guy's had so much craziness happen, yet he was able to create something so beautiful. So what is it? Do you know why you're able to do that?
Well, the side effects of maturity from all of these traumas, the depression, it killed my first marriage, because I was not fully aware of what was really going on. And yet now what I'm able to do is go, wait a second, I survived this, I survived that, I survived this. So when there is something that is dark that comes in, no matter how impending the doom feels, I know there is the sun is going to come up, the light is going to come back. The question is when. And that takes a lot of patience and long suffering. And in those moments is when I'm using a lot of music to lift me. I listen to a lot of Christian music, not the surface, hey everybody, let's have a good time, But I'm talking like Andrew Peterson, Corey Asbury, the stuff where there's a real lyric teaching you that there is darkness and that, but the light is coming. It's May It Be. It's Lord of the Rings stuff. It's all a mind game, But it's and you have to have people in your life, and I've got this incredible spouse who is very aware on the cellular level what goes on in our body and our brains. And
what does she do? Why is she aware of that?
Well, for example, this is like everything in my life is like this right now. I got stevia, I got like all the healthy stuff.
Sure.
She gets me the lilies that are like there's no sugar.
Yep.
She is a fitness competitor, age 52, but early on in her life, she was working in New York during 9/11 for Morgan Stanley. A lot of people died that she knew, and it was hard on her, and she did a major shift. She's like, I'm tired of just showing up in a black car and making money and the game and all that, going out. I want to help people live. And she got healthy, and she got really healthy, turned to fitness and wellness, and then she moved to California and worked for Rick Warren, pastor of Saddleback Church, and was involved in creating the Daniel Plan, which is a program to help. Program to help. Well, the pastor couldn't see his shoes when he was teaching Daniel, and he's like, I can't teach to abstain, Daniel abstaining from these foods in Babylon if I can't see my own shoes. So he asked her for help, and the entire church with the pastor got in shape.
Wow. And that's a mega church. That's thousands of people. And
because the idea there was God gave you this beautiful body, and we make everything look, and there's this stigma in society that you can't make it look perfect and beautiful, or it's vain. But this is the creation of God. Let's make it the most amazing place for Him to come and dwell.
Wow. I find that phenomenal. Do you know what the Daniel fast is, just for our folks listening? Is it only vegetables for 7 days? But it sounds like she did something more with it.
I'm not exactly sure. I know it's just abstaining from the sugars. Sugar, which I think everybody's well educated now on sugar and how damaging that is, and how addictive that is. He asked, Rick's not too strict on but he asked everybody to, you really want to live this, got to get alcohol out of your life because the ethanol and the alcohol is making it so you can't sleep.
Right.
Just clean up, and fitness. They started having worship classes where you're exercising.
Wow.
She was up, there's this beautiful picture of Tina up on stage, and there's a cross, and she's doing the jumping jacks, and it was strange for me at first coming out of Mormonism, because we're so conservative and you just don't do that stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, yes, let's celebrate life, let's celebrate the victory, let's celebrate, and it's everything I was kind of longing for. Right. Victory over death.
Wow. That is amazing. And so your wife is that's what she currently does, and is she still a fitness strategist and a fitness coach?
So I'm primarily her patient now, because when we met 9 years ago, we met on this cruise ship. I was with this other group, and she was with her mom, and I noticed, first of all, she was the only one my age on the ship. She couldn't go anywhere, so I had to get to know her. And there's all this, she's eating really healthy. And I thought she was Mormon because she didn't drink coffee, and she didn't have a drink with her mom. And she just No, but that's what she does right now is she spends, I'm a full-time job with my career and my heart. And so she's been devoting pretty much everything to helping me. But it's cool for people that are interested. She does have this blog, Instagram. It's Tina Cardall. And she does stories of healthy things that she finds at Whole Foods and other places. Teaches people how to be healthy and not starve.
I love
she
that.
She eats more. I mean, she's probably like you. She eats all the time, but she's like and muscular, She's got abs, and I'm like, I have pacemaker scars.
Right. And you have kids? You have kids, Paul?
Two.
How old are they?
15 and 9. How about you?
Yeah, my son's 17. This is, and
wow.
This is his senior year during COVID. He's at home, and it's been awesome though. I've been so grateful. He was in virtual school already. He's was heading into the virtual education anyway, so he was kind of ahead of the game. But yeah, fitness and health is a big part of both our lives, his lives. He's really taken to is like working out all the time and getting super buff and yeah, it's pretty awesome being a dad and
watching him make those choices that are in line with what is going to bring joy.
Exactly.
And stability.
And eating well, and he's becoming a businessman. Looking at your business, like your amount of, you have 30 million streams per month, and you have what does that mean, over 3 billion streams on your music? Like, is that on YouTube, or is that on, how do they calculate that?
So that's across the board, and I don't know where the number is now, but I had an advantage early on because when I signed with Virgin Records, they were able to get one of my albums on the Billboard chart, and then Napster happened, and Pandora came, and by then I had left Virgin and started my own label just to get my product out there and other artists I was playing with, just to do instrumental music that helps heal your heart. And Pandora called and said, what else you got? Send us whatever you have. They were going to put it into their Genome project, which is a computer algorithm that scans your computer so it knows exactly what you like. Whereas Spotify, which is owned by the record labels, manipulates you and tells you what to listen to. Humans telling you what to listen to. Whereas Pandora is a very pure system. And so I gave them, and it started just slowly scanning that other people were listening to George Winston and Yanni and Enya and Mozart, and not that those can be way different, but my music started to play on those, and it was word of mouth. Really, it was a thumbs up. I had no control over it. And the checks started coming at the right time because I was waiting for art. And when they started coming years later, when it really blew up. But, it's a matter of, from the first time I went and played the piano in a restaurant and got paid, and somebody came over and said, I like what you got. I said, that's so nice. Thank you. Can I get your address? Because I might have something come out. Can I mail you something to let you know if I got an album? So I accumulated a mailing list of loyal fans that are friends, our family, it's clients. I don't really call them fans. These are people who are seeking a better life and healing. And so I'm very involved, sometimes maybe too much, in their lives and trying to give them what they're seeking.
So you've accumulated a massive email list too, I guess, over those years.
It's been good.
That's really cool. That's such a great way to. And you recently sold your record company in Nashville because you guys moved to Nashville. What prompted that move, and why did you guys move to Nashville?
We felt led to Nashville. I was keynoting the American Art Association dinner in New Orleans in 2018, and we said, let's drive up to Cleveland where her mom is for Thanksgiving and stop in Nashville because I'm a Johnny Cash fan. Yeah. I wanted to go, and I'd never been to Nashville. So what did I do? We drove there, and I went to Johnny Cash's grave while she was at the gym. And I just had a moment with Cash. This was a man who was reckless and the worst, and yet God changed him. And likewise, he influenced like Merle Haggard, who was in prison and heard Johnny Cash perform, and he changed. And I just said, thank you, Anyways, we were leaving Nashville up in Kentucky, and my wife goes, do you feel that? I'm like, oh, what? And she goes, we should. And I realized, I said, yeah, we should go back to Nashville. So we totally 2 months later, and I just finished reconstructing my entire studio, record label, hanging all the, awards, meaningless things on the walls, feeling cool. And
wait, are one of those awards you have 11 number one albums or 22 number one albums?
There's a bunch of number ones and a lot of top 10 albums, and then the other artists that I signed and worked with their records, we've got so there's 43, 44, something like that.
So,
they're just
so you're hanging up those plaques and things like that back. Where were you living before Nashville then? In Utah?
So it was Salt Lake City. I had built the premier Steinway & Sons recording studio, sponsored by Steinway. But it was mainly just for the music we were creating. I created a record label where we didn't have to rely on other people to come into the studio and record, that it was all from residual income from the streaming that was funding everything. And I was really just fortunate, really blessed to be able to do that. And nobody had ever heard, they knew the music, but I could be under the radar. It was cool. And it still is. And so we said, let's pack a suitcase and go to Nashville next month and just stay for a month and see what God is doing. And maybe it's not God. Let's see. So we went and stayed in an extended stay. It was like a honeymoon. It was a lot of fun. Went down to Broadway. I happened to pick the month when Music Biz Conference was taking place. So Music Biz is a very popular gathering place for the people that work behind the music scenes. Okay. And I was like, oh, these are the people making the money. Right. Because the artists don't show up because they go to NAMM to look at gear, And so I go to this, and I was able to meet the vice president of Sound Exchange for the first time. Sound Exchange distributes money to performers from a recording. Record labels sometimes pull in that, but it's supposed to come directly from Sound Exchange to the artist. And I had been collecting from them. So the vice president saw me, knew me, and came over and started talking to me. And that's when a couple people overheard and started latching on. And have you ever thought of selling your catalog? And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. They're like, oh yeah. But I had heard, Michael Jackson bought the Beatle catalog and Paul McCartney wanted it, but Michael Jackson had bought it, and that was funding everything Michael does. And so I was intrigued by it, and they started shopping it. And at that time, I had been through so much. I was like, I'm just going to maybe retire and focus on the kids, the marriage, everything. But you can't, it seems like you try to do things for yourself, but the universe always has something else they need you to do. And I ended up selling the catalog to Olay that became Anthem Entertainment. They had bought my kind of empire. They owned Timbaland. Timbaland does all the, like, Justin Timberlake and Beyonce, and then they had all this country music. So I was kind of like a fish in a weird pond because I was classical crossover, and
Sure.
they weren't as familiar with that. So, but
So you sold your record label like when you came to Nashville. And inside that record label was your entire catalog or parts of it?
so I sold the catalog and not the label. So I still own the rights to the label. So I sold off everything I had ever done, 100% transaction, all the artists I had signed, all their master recordings. They didn't renew any contracts with any artists because we just did album deals. I never did artist deals. I didn't want to get too emotional with artists. I just wanted to focus on a project that people needed, and I got the right artist to do that project.
Okay.
And those artists continue to get their residual. It's crazy stuff because, like, we did a guitar record for Ryan Tilby, and he just did a bunch of hymn arrangements. He went in the studio, self-taught, sat down for 3 hours and just played some stuff, and we ended up cutting the record. And then he went back to his day job. To this day, he's earning $2,000 to $3,000 a month from that one album, from streaming, because instrumental music is the tortoise in the industry, whereas pop is the hare.
Right.
He likes to party and hang out.
Yeah. I mean, the NFTs is going to be something. Are you familiar with non-fungible tokens?
No. What is that?
It's going to change. It's literally going to change the music industry. So you can own someone's master copy through, and it's sold through blockchain technology. So it's very tough on the environment because the amount of computing in order to create this. So people are buying art. Like there's an artist called Burn Banksy where he bought a Banksy and digitally recreated it through photography, burned the Banksy on camera so that there's a digital copy, but there's one. And he made 300 million. Like, so, but you own it, and it's a non-fungible token, meaning it's a bit currency, or it's a cryptocurrency that you can't use to trade with. But your music, especially moving forward, you would sell, like, say you would sell the first piano that you ever made, or sorry, it's more in the digital space. So you would sell the first recording ever that you did when you were 13. You have that thing, you would create an NFT with it. And the amount of money they're paying for these things is like, it's the most bizarre. Just look it up. Look it up for your future things. Like, you create an individual piece of digital content that will, and the amount of money that's there in NFTs right now is staggering because of the way blockchain's going. But check it out. Now that I've introduced you to NFTs, all you're going to hear about is NFTs, and you're going to be like, how do I create? You'll see. It's going to be, it's the way the music, it's an artist can make money from like merch and things like that. Like they can sell certain things, it's really big money. So look at it. It might be, for artists.
Yeah. Is this like the artificial intelligence stuff that's happening where you have people that are not musicians going and using artificial intelligence to create music that sounds like the very best music, but it's not, and then they sell it to Spotify and you have fake artists?
No, this is different. This is inside of the blockchain space. So I haven't heard of that. That sounds terrifying.
Well, that's what Spotify's doing. Yeah.
Non-fungible tokens. So we're going to wrap up with this. I just want to hear a little bit about your creative process with the Broken Miracle, your new album, and the novel written about your life journey, what was that like, handing over all your notes and to have your life turned into a novel like that? What was that like?
Extremely vulnerable. And the reason I did it is because I get email after email from parents who are concerned about their child born with a heart defect or some type of chronic illness. And they're aware because, it's a very small world, but it's the largest cause of infant-related deaths. And I email people, and I was like, it'd be nice to somehow just have them read a story, but not like a Rolling Stone story, a fictional based on real events. So we put out part one. It's written by J.D. Netto, who's actually a fantasy writer, because he said my life borders fantasy, the way it's just too unrealistic. And then part two, I just finished editing. But we created an album. I created an album. So this is really the first time I've been able to do an album of what I really want to do, which is, and personal. Every other album is it's not about me. This is the first one that tells my story and a lot of the feelings I have inside. And it's the first time I've had more than 3 songs with lyrics. You know, and so these are lyrics. These are things I've wanted to say in my transformation away from having the heart transplant, having an awakening, discovering my value in terms of the divine and where I feel led to go. And some of the frustrations with society. Like there's a song called Change on the record. Everybody thinks it's about my ex-wife. It's not about my ex-wife. It's about organized systems that kept me from feeling free.
Okay.
You know? But that's the beautiful thing with music, right? You can get whatever you want out of it.
You can get whatever you. So what's the most important thing to you right now in your life, Paul?
The most important thing to me right now is to work every day to I want when I'm gone, my wife to say that I was a really nice guy. I want my wife to say I loved being married to him. And I want my kids to go, you know, he loved me. He was so good to me. That's what I want. And so I'm working on that, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I got a lot of work to do on myself. I really do.
Right. I mean, that's just life, right? Life is a journey, and we're hopefully continuing to look at ourselves, to see and be reflected by our kids and our partners, and to like some work it's never really done. We're just continue to. Like the next level in the video game, it's like we got level up, and go through.
Yeah, but only a few of us get a second chance. You know, in the real games where.
Well, how many chances have you had?
I don't know. I think I'm a cat. I'm a cat. I don't know, man. I just enjoy like learning from from people like you and others to make the world better and enrich our lives.
Yeah, and I think that's why I wanted to speak with you here today too. Is there's a lot of inspiration in your story and not giving up and not being a victim. And if there's anything I want my listeners to take from this is just your story is so inspiring in the sense that you had this drive and this will to survive, and you created beauty out of a disaster. And I think Man's Search for Meaning is one of my favorite books, and Viktor Frankl wrote it in Auschwitz, and it's like so much. Hearing your life story, you had a lot of obstacles and a lot of loss and a lot of, say, dragons to slay. And what I'm interested in you is why and how you got there, and what allowed you to keep going and keep moving. And you shared a lot of that. What I really want to invite my viewers and my listeners for you as well is to listen to your music and you check out this book of yours. And there's, like I said, we've had your music on for 10 days in this house, and there is a lot of hope and a lot of joy and love that comes through your music. And so I always want to inspire my audience with guests like you and introducing them to artists like you too. And your story is very inspiring. And that's my hope, is that people can take away from our conversation that no matter what life gives you, you can create something beautiful And in your case, you created beauty for others to help them transform their lives, and to use your story, especially in this book, you know, The Broken Miracle, and in the new album, which tells the story of your life, to have your life be used in a way that really one day you're going to be gone, but the story that you and your heart is going to help millions of people to look at this and be like, oh, I can keep going. I can keep moving forward, and actually better than that, I can create something and not be a victim of my circumstances. And that's what inspired me when I heard your story. And so if people want to continue following you and learning more about you and have your music in their life, is your website just paulcardall.com? Is that how they find you?
Yeah, it's Paul Cardall, and it's, you know, right there, it's spelled like this.
That's smart. That's smart. I need one that says
it's
Paul Greene.
These are all the different songs we've done over the years, and the titles and stuff, all as a heart. But no, man, I sincerely appreciate it. Every day is a gift. You know, we're constantly slaying dragons. Ask the divine to put people in our lives who are faithful and kind, and that we can love. But, you know, I ask people all the time, if I handed you your birth certificate, it's a Stephen Wright joke, but I think it's very interesting. If I handed you your birth certificate and you flipped it over and there's an expiration date, would you want to know?
Right. I wouldn't. No way.
And that's why we don't know. God wants us to make every day count, like it's our last. You know, we could go at any time, and that's the harsh reality. And so I know that life goes on. That's why I could never do anything stupid, because they just put you to work on the other side.
Right, so, right, yeah, it's right up with. So
they're just going to put you to work. Now you got to go follow these guys.
Right, now you got to go do. Yeah, it's not like it's. Yeah, you still got work. You'll always have work to do. So
yeah, I mean, I thought it was like a lobby with Frank Sinatra and you know, David Bowie doing a duet. If that's the case, I'm gone.
Right.
But it's not.
Pretty sure it's not that. I mean, no. but and you I want to end with this. You mentioned something about depression. What help could you offer somebody who's watching this or listening to this that might have had a big struggle with depression? What is there anything that from your life experience of and you shared that's depression, anxiety, they're there for you, and I'm sure they're there for a lot of people, especially in our sort of social media world that we're in now. And our comparison, you know, is the thief of joy, which is one of my favorite quotes. But is there anything that you could share around depression?
Number one, get a good cognitive therapist. I think everybody should talk to somebody. You need to be able to share. That's something I didn't think I needed, because I had a perfect religious system that takes care of the community, and I had God. So why do I need somebody who doesn't know the eternal? Sure. I didn't know I needed somebody for this, you know. Right. I think we need a higher power in our lives. That's the 12-step program. You know, you need a higher power. You need to recognize that you cannot manage this. You need help. So find a source. My source is Jesus, because he embodied every attribute of kindness, unconditional love. He treated everybody that was an outcast like they were part of the family. And then just stay busy. Just stay busy. Sorry about that. Stay busy, you know. So that's, hey, you just keep going, you man. It's
yeah, just keep going. That's the Walt Disney quote. It's just like, just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Frodo gets home from Mordor after chucking the ring in, and you know, Tolkien had a third book planned, but he died. So we knew that wasn't the end of Frodo's dilemma. Life continued even in Elfish Land, wherever he was. Sure. We don't know what his challenge would have been, but you just keep going.
Right. I love we're ending it on a Frodo quote, or on an analogy from that. So
because if there was no Bible, that would be the Bible.
Right. Well, I'm excited and one of my intentions was to have more people hear your music and to discover you as an artist, because it's really, really touching and really moving. And I'm glad that Aaron connected us in this way. So people can they find everything about you on paulcardall.com?
Yeah. And you can Google, my music is on every platform. Ask Alexa, ask Siri, ask your mother, ask, whoever, but, it's everywhere, but paulcardall.com, and then my Facebook and Instagram.
And is your Facebook are they the same? Paul, your Instagram and Facebook, are they pretty easy to find you?
Yeah, it's my name. It's
Great.
My name. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been a privilege thank you for sharing so authentically too, and about some of these tough things, and also thank you for being vulnerable and sharing.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it, and thank you for your podcast and everything you're doing, man.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. I'm gonna listen, because I want to know what this business you're doing with your wife, because it seems extremely intriguing to me.
Yeah. Well, there's info on that everywhere. I can just let you know too. We're doing a similar thing. We just, you have a story, and Kate and I both have stories, and we realize that there's some value in sharing the journey as well as some of the tools you pick up along the way. And I think it's a meaning of life, is like, have your life make a difference for others. And then there's joy there too. And one of the tools for depression that I was introduced to is go do something for somebody else. Go to an old folks home and read somebody a story who never gets a visitor. And if you're living your life for others as a contribution, that's such a really powerful way to move through some of those feelings or symptoms of depression.
Well, I totally agree with you 100%. It's that's the key. That's the gospel. That's even Eminem. You got to lose yourself. That's how he rose out of his situation, which was horrible. So we have this spectrum and these ideas of what people do, but it's that's why we have families, man, so we can serve and love and protect, and it gives us purpose and value.
That's for sure. Well, blessings on you and your whole family and your music and your this heart of yours, which now feels like a Porsche in your chest. Your heart's doing good. Like it's.
Oh man, this is. Imagine getting your whole life you're driving a truck that's grandpa's truck. Nobody wants to drive it. They're afraid it's going to break down. You're fine with it, and then they hand you the keys to a Porsche.
Wow.
It's cool. It's really cool, but it's also a little out of control sometimes. You got to calm down.
Right. Well,
that's why I'm on the bubbly. So.
Okay. Yeah. Some sparkling water, and this is that stevia stuff you were talking about. It's like a soda that.
Are you kidding me? That's exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You have the root beer one floating around.
Everything. That's all in our fridge right now. You tried these guys?
I'm not. Oh, so your wife's keto?
No, she's just healthy. She's just
okay.
She's got like all that stuff, man. Like,
yeah. Well, say hi to her from me.
That's why she told me to listen to you. She's all just pay attention. That's right.
Well, yeah. Life is interesting in fitness. There's so many trends, but I've definitely learned. There's simple ways to be healthy: get good sleep, drink lots of water, move your body, and then from there is like eat as much natural, whole foods as you can. Cut out all the packaged, all the sugar, and then the game up here is to not beat the living daylights out of yourself for messing up. Like, it's pretty simple.
That's exactly right. Hey, hold up that can one more time. I'm going to screenshot this, send this over to her.
All right.
Yeah. Dude, that's so cool.
All right. I'm gonna get sponsored. These guys are gonna reach out and be like, all right, we're gonna do
we can do that. We can make that happen. Just tag them, man. They love it. They share it all the time.
Yeah. All right. Lots of love to you, man, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Paul. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye, Paul.
Bye.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And yes, that music in the background is Paul's latest for the Broken Miracle. And I highly recommend listening to it. You can just ask Alexa, or you can check it out on his website at paulcardall.com. And what a story. I really hope and trust that you were able to take something from it and get some goodies from it. And I just really enjoyed my chat with him, getting to know a little bit more about his journey and never giving up, even though everyone tells you that you're probably going to die. To be a yes in the face of a no, what a gift. So thank you for being here. Remember to be kind and loving and gentle and tender towards yourself in your thoughts on purpose. And please subscribe, review, rate, all those goodies here on iTunes. That makes the biggest difference. And if you feel like it, please share if the spirit moves you. And remember that fear is just the absence of love. Love ya. One, two.